Hey everybody, it's me, Adam Chapnick from the Security Token Academy, and I'm here with super attorney Juan Cappello from the Private Advising Group. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, real pleasure to be here.
So, okay, we love talking to attorneys because you guys are definitely on the front lines, right?
We're the ones screwing it up for everyone.
For everybody.
For everyone,
That's
yes.
Right. So, given that unique insight, we like to kind of ask you some of the key questions that sometimes seem obvious, but definitely are not that simple. So one of those kind of questions, like really fundamental questions, in light of last year's ICO craze, and then this year's security token craze. What really is the difference between a utility token and a security token now in light of all of the edicts from Jay Clayton or whoever?
Right.
Where do we stand?
Well, where we stand is, I think, utility tokens are somewhere in the SEC's mind as likely as finding a unicorn out in the wild.
Okay.
I think the reality is there is a real case to be made that you can structure a product and really keep it as a utility token, but that nomenclature doesn't work anymore. And what you need to do is you have to say, hey, am I pre-selling a product? If I'm pre-selling sneakers, or Spotify wanted to issue a spot, and each spot was worth a song, and it was consumable, and most of the people consumed it, no problem.
Right.
You can do general solicitation, you can have billboards talking about it, you can have 50 Cents tweeting about it, no problem.
But now, is that no problem? I mean, is that truly consensus, or are we like, it seems to be no problem?
I have 26 years of practicing securities law. I was a principal shareholder at a 2,000 lawyer law firm, and I ran a whole department. And I can tell you that if you work with a capable lawyer who's actually been a securities lawyer most of his career, not chasing ambulances or doing mortgage foreclosures a few years ago.
Personal injury attorneys as well.
Right. But the point is, yes, you can definitely structure something as a utility token.
Okay.
The issue is it's not nearly as much fun because what you're not going to be able to do is
raise money.
You can do a pre-sale, but you're not going to be able to raise money. You're not going to list it on an exchange. The laws of gravity are going to apply to that product.
Got it. Okay. So that's clear. Now, in the work that you work with a lot of the high-profile players in our tiny little, but soon-to-be enormous niche. What are you seeing as sort of the sticking points, whether it's regulatory or if it's in the formation of a company, or is it maybe it's even in the understanding in the public? Like where are the sticking points?
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest thing is there's been a lot of static or bad advice out there, and so you still have people making mistakes that are very predictable. It's very difficult to predict who's going to be successful, but it's very easy to predict who's going to, crash against the wall.
Really? Okay,
and the people who are today, US based, the mind of management is in the US, and they're, trying to go to Switzerland to create a foundation to do an ICO, or they're telling me, oh, I've been talking to this, amazing lawyer in Malta who says we can just do it there.
Yes.
That they're missing the big point, which is in the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission is a bit old-fashioned. They have the Securities Act of 1933, the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. Those acts have not needed giant amendments in the last 90 plus years. They've been in, or 80 plus years. They've worked just fine. And anyone who thinks today that the SEC feels that, there needs to be wholesale changes to their rules hasn't dealt with the SEC. And so what I'm seeing from entrepreneurs is smart entrepreneurs that are working with platforms like Securitize and understand compliance, et cetera, are really able to take advantage of this market. The people who are trying to position themselves too much as pioneers, they're going to keep getting the arrows. And those arrows are going to be increasingly painful, whereas the settlers, the people who are going to do things in a compliant way, they really are going to get the land. And they're not going to have to worry so much about the arrows.
That is a great metaphor that I have not heard. It's easy to see it that way, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. You don't want to be a settler.
You don't want to be a pioneer.
Sorry, you don't want to be a pioneer. You want to be a settler.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right. That's really interesting. So, what about in terms of when you're advising these sort of core companies that are the building blocks of the industry,
Yeah.
are they running into problems because of some issues with the laws or
yes.
something?
So I'd say for issuers, for companies that want to issue tokens
Yeah.
or issue coins, the rules are fairly clear. We might not like the rules. We might be hoping that the SEC will, get off this enforcement kick they're on
Right.
and move much more to a compliance. So right now they're just sort of trying to shut the bad actors down.
Yeah.
And people like me are really betting that the SEC is going to start using the crowdfunding regs, Rule A+,
Yeah.
Rule CF, and say basically, hey, you want to do the equivalent of a quasi ICO? Here's the path to compliance. So for the issuers, things I think are fairly clear.
Yeah.
For the people who are trying to create the infrastructure, the
Yeah.
trading platforms,
Right.
the settlement platforms, it's a mess. I mean,
Oh,
that's the
still.
reality,
Okay.
that you can spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars with the brightest minds who lobby the SEC, et cetera, and you will get very inconsistent advice, and that's not good for the industry.
No, right. We
and
want
so,
clarity.
Yeah, and so people like, whether it's Securitize or Bread, who's a client of mine, or BRD, Sapos, people who are Coinbase, people like that who are really trying to do things right and create
Right.
smart infrastructure for this industry, they are really being hampered by a lack of clarity in the rules. But for the issuers, for the actual companies that want to issue tokens,
Yeah.
I think the rules are fairly clear at this point.
Right. Well, I guess seems like we would need that clarity to come from the infrastructure so that everybody can.
100%.
We need the tracks for the trains to drive on.
I mean, the dirty secret is that there's a lot of vested interests in terms of keeping the financial systems and the regulations as they are.
Okay.
And most intermediaries don't love to be disrupted. And one of the things that I think this industry in its exuberance has sometimes talked a little too much about how it's going to disintermediate all
funny.
of the
It's scary.
because of
Scaring
course,
all
what's
the
the
key
first thing
players,
that
right.
those people do when they hear that?
Retrench.
They
right.
retrench.
Right.
They do have lobbyists. They
Yep.
are very well connected with the SEC and with a lot of other institutions in Washington. And they're sending a message that, hey, let's move very slowly here, et cetera. I mean, I do believe that this industry is going to revolutionize things and disintermediate a lot of the current actors, be it the large credit card processing companies, the large exchanges, et cetera. But those people are going to put up a fight.
Yeah.
They're putting up a fight now by just sending a message to the regulators that things need to move slowly. And I think we're going to see them retrenching even a bit more.
So given exactly what you're saying, what do you think the timeline is on that? They're going to fight back, they're going to retrench, but then
Well, let me
they're
be
going to get
optimistic.
beaten. Yeah,
Let me
let's
be optimistic.
What do you
So
think?
optimistic, I think, for issuers in
Yeah.
the SEC and the crowdfunding regs and the SEC moving from its enforcement posture to more compliance. Here's
Yeah.
a path to compliance. I think we're looking 6 to 9 months. I think
Oh.
that's going to move reasonably quickly.
That's very fast,
Yeah,
yeah.
very fast. I'm an eternal optimist.
Hey, I
Hope
love
springs
it.
eternal,
I
but
love
I
it.
do believe. I think on the regulatory infrastructure side, trying to get the rules clarified around exchanges, et cetera, that we're looking at 2+ years.
Yeah. Okay.
But that doesn't mean the industry needs to shut down.
Right.
The industry is going to continue to evolve. There are going to be some, either brave people who are willing to be pioneers, or some foolish people, but you're going to have people out there. Some people are going to take some arrows. The SEC, I think, is going to slowly give some guidance.
Yep.
And, the industry is going to evolve with or without the regulators. I mean, that's what happened with the internet, and that's what happened in a number of industries. People are finding it isn't always better to ask forgiveness than permission, but we're still going to be seeing a lot of people with that kind of attitude.
Love it. Well, Juan, thanks so much for
No,
sharing the
wonderful.
thoughts from
Real pleasure.
Yeah, it's great having you.
Cheers.
Come back
Bye-bye.
soon.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Absolutely.